A last-minute twist has shaken the Manchester City camp. The club, which in recent years has become accustomed to making quick and precise decisions both on and off the pitch, is now facing a series of delicate situations that not only affect the squad, but also stir the emotions of the fans. And if you thought that Rico Lewis's red card would just be another controversial incident quickly resolved, think again. The matter was taken seriously, and the final decision has already been made, and it's not going to please everyone. Rico Lewis, one of the most reliable prospects in the squad, was named in the starting lineup for City's debut match in the Club World Cup, held in the United States. The game seemed under control. A comfortable 2-0 win over Wad AC, first-half goals, complete domination. Everything was going well until the final minutes. That's when calm turned into frustration. In an attempt to stop a counterattack, Rico slid into the ball with a well-calculated technical tackle, the kind of move fans usually applaud. He made contact with the ball, clearing the danger. However, his supporting leg accidentally struck the opponent's face. No malice, no intention. Still, the referee, with VAR's assistance, deemed the tackle aggressive and showed him a straight red card. The reaction was immediate. Guardiola was stunned on the sidelines. The players looked at each other, trying to make sense of it. In the stands, fans were left speechless. And after the final whistle, teammate Nico O'Reilly revealed the mood in the locker room. Rico was beside himself. He tried to avoid the collision. It wasn't intentional, but he was punished as if it had been. Then came the inevitable question. Will Manchester City appeal? For hours, this doubt loomed over the club's camp, but according to journalist Jack Gaughan, City decided not to appeal. Yes, that's right. Despite all the context, the images that seemed to exonerate the player, the club accepted the punishment. Guardiola even vented after the match. Rico had both feet on the ground. The referee claimed they were high, but that's not true. It was a natural movement, with no malice whatsoever. But it is what it is. And with that, it's confirmed. Rico Lewis is out of the Club World Cup semi-final against Al Ain from the UAE, which will take place in Atlanta. A significant loss at a crucial moment. And now the fans are divided. Accept it or protest. While the punishment for Rico still resonates, another movement behind the scenes is also drawing attention. And this one involves the future of one of the squad's key stars, Jack Grealish. The midfielder, who arrived at City amidst high expectations and astronomical figures, may be nearing the end of his time at the Etihad Stadium. According to Fabrizio Romano, one of the most reliable transfer journalists, the club has offered Grealish to Napoli. But the Italian team's response was a resounding no. The reason? Salary. Grealish earns around $300,000 a week, a figure that many clubs, even elite ones, simply don't want to take on. And unlike other players who accept wage cuts to move elsewhere, Grealish has yet to show any willingness to do so. Not even Tottenham, another interested club, was keen on the proposal. City is even considering loaning him out, provided the new club covers at least half of his wages. But so far, nothing has progressed. So the question arises, is the problem only the salary, or is there more to it? A dip in form, an unresolved adaptation. Grealish has talent, he's got the media spotlight, but does he still have the spark he once had? Meanwhile, the transfer market continues to heat up. And with that, important names are circulating in negotiations. One of them is Kyle Walker, a veteran, a champion, a reference, but also someone starting to see the doors closing. At 35, Walker knows his career is nearing its end, and after a mixed season, the club seems willing to let him go, even on loan if necessary. AC Milan had considered his services, but it was an emergency negotiation. The plan now was to find a permanent destination, perhaps even in Turkey. Fenerbahce emerged as a concrete possibility, and Walker was willing to talk. He requested a 2-year contract. He was open to it. But the Turkish club chose to go in a different direction. According to Turkish media reports, Fenerbahce is now fully focused on Lucas Vazquez from Real Madrid. Younger, more versatile, and more aligned with Jose Mourinho's offensive style. The move for the Spaniard completely cooled any interest in Walker. And what does this mean? that City is left without an immediate alternative for the veteran right-back. Real Madrid, by opening negotiations with the Turkish club, may have sealed Walker's fate, albeit indirectly. Everton was briefly considered, but that too cooled off. Result, the player remains in the squad, but with no clear perspective. Would you hold on to Walker for another season? Or is it time to turn the page? What cannot be denied is that Manchester City is moving with intensity. The transfer window isn't even at its peak yet, but Pep Guardiola already had a list of reinforcements even before it opened. And believe it, he has already brought in all the players he wanted. 4 or 5 reinforcements, all already integrated into the squad competing in the Club World Cup. In addition, the coaching staff has also undergone important adjustments. Pepin Linders and James French joined the technical staff, bringing fresh ideas and revitalizing the club's internal structure. And in the youth ranks, emerging talents are receiving increased attention. Among them, one name that's starting to spark anticipation, Ryan Thurick, a French forward, still relatively unknown, but with potential that stands out. He made his debut in the match against Wad AC. He wasn't brilliant, but he didn't disappoint either. He showed desire, intensity, but still lacks cohesion with the team. For Nedum Onuoha, former center-back and current ESPN FC commentator, Thurick could become one of Europe's top forwards, as long as he adapts to City's style of play and, most importantly, forms chemistry with players like Haaland and Foden. But here's the catch. Foden is back with a vengeance this summer, fit, focused, and dominant. He plays exactly in Thurick's area. The battle for a spot will be fierce, and the Frenchman will have to prove at every training session and every minute on the pitch that he deserves to be there. The curious thing is that despite the tension surrounding Thurick, Manchester City has been exemplary in its care for young players. It is no secret that the club has long bet on lesser-known talents. The difference now is that there is a silent urgency in the air. The early elimination from the last Champions League, the loss of key figures, and the need to renew the squad without compromising its winning identity have created an invisible pressure on every new player who dons the sky blue shirt. There is no time for mistakes. Every debut is a trial by fire, and it is in this scenario that Thurick tries to establish himself. In a club where Haaland is indisputable, Foden is a consolidated star, and even players like Julian Alvarez fight for protagonism. Finding space is not easy. But if there is one thing Guardiola has shown, it's that he knows how to turn promises into reality, with patience, with strategy, with demands. And if Thurick wants to survive in this environment, he will have to quickly absorb the weight of the shirt. It's not just about talent, it's about mentality, discipline, understanding what it means to play in a team that doesn't accept second place. By the way, this brings us to another point. The club's approach to controversial decisions, such as the expulsion of Rico Lewis, shows us something important. City is avoiding public confrontations. They accepted the referee's mistake. They swallowed the frustration. This may seem like weakness to some, but it is actually part of a silent sports diplomacy policy that has been adopted in recent years. Guardiola, who has exploded in interviews in the past, is now more controlled. The club doesn't want fights with federations or negative headlines in times when image weighs as much as titles. And by accepting Lewis's suspension without appealing, City sends a clear message. We are looking at the long term, but that doesn't mean passivity. Behind the scenes, the club is more active than ever. Talks with agents are constant. Market analyses are ongoing. And players once considered untouchable are now on the list of potential exits. Jack Grealish, for example, faces a dilemma that goes beyond his salary. There is a veiled discomfort with his off-field behavior. Sources close to the club speak of dissatisfaction with his commitment in training and lack of focus in key moments. It's no wonder that even though City is trying to negotiate, interested clubs step back when they learn of his cost-benefit. On Grealish's side, there is frustration, too. He arrived as a symbol of the new era, an English Galactico, with one of the biggest transfers in British football history. But he never delivered consistently. Injuries, fluctuations, and of course the fierce competition in the squad have meant his trajectory at Etihad never fully took off. Meanwhile, names like Bernardo Silva continue to grow both in the dressing room and beyond. Without De Bruyne, who moved to Napoli as a free agent, Bernardo has gained even more prominence, and it seems he will inherit the captain's armband, a recognition not only for his technique but for his dedication, his quiet leadership, and his loyalty to the club's project. It's curious how City's dressing room is undergoing a leadership transition. The cycle of players like Walker and De Bruyne seems to be ending, while figures like Ederson, Bernardo, and even Ruben Dias are taking on more central roles. Pep Guardiola, for his part, is rebuilding this emotional and tactical base with surgical precision. And when we talk about Pep, we must remember, nothing at this club happens by chance. The arrival of new names to the coaching staff, like Pepin Lijnders, Klopp's former right-hand man, and James French, shows that the manager is looking to oxygenate ideas, reinvent the team even after historic achievements. This strategic movement is also visible in the way City is handling its promises. The director's focus is now turning to names that have yet to debut, but already spark European interest. The idea is clear. Either the young players become useful in the main squad, or they will be valued for future sales. No assets will be lost for free. And speaking of business, the market remains heated. According to Fabrizio Romano, Manchester City offered an elite player to a Champions League club, but the proposal was rejected. The name wasn't officially revealed, but it is speculated to have been Grealish or another offensive player. The rejection from the European club wasn't exactly a surprise. With the economy in alert mode and most top teams more cautious than ever, paying astronomical wages has become a luxury that few can afford, especially when the player hasn't been on an outstanding run. Even so, City continues to try. The logic is simple. Free up space on the payroll, give protagonism to those who are really performing, and pave the way for the new talents knocking at the door. But at the same time, the club knows it needs balance. It can't give up too much experience, and that's where the discussion about Kyle Walker comes back. The case of the right back is emblematic. A player with an enviable CV, still capable of contributing at a high level, but who has lost space. The possible signing of Lucas Vazquez by Fenerbahce, with Mourinho's approval, exposed how the market is looking towards the future. And this may leave Walker on the sidelines. Even though he's still useful, staying in the squad without prospects, in fact, may be worse than leaving. And City knows this. That's why it continues to try to find a dignified solution for one of its most iconic players. The relationship between Guardiola and Walker has never been simple. There is respect, yes, but there have also been frictions, demands, moments of distance. And perhaps now the farewell is closer than ever. While all of this unfolds behind the scenes, what we see on the field is a team under construction, but with the same hunger as always. The Club World Cup may seem like a secondary competition to some, but at City, everything carries weight. Everything is used as a thermometer, and every match is seen as a chance to test the new system, the new signings, the tactical maturity. Pep Guardiola knows he is entering one of the most challenging seasons of his career. Without De Bruyne, with possible delicate exits, and a promising but still unstable youth, he needs to find the perfect mix between experience and renewal. And that takes time. It takes courage. Above all, it takes emotional control, something the coach himself has been trying to cultivate amidst decisions like accepting Lewis's unjust red card without appeal. But does this more peaceful approach work in a football world that is increasingly political and media-driven? Or is City risking appearing weak when they are really just trying to be strategic? On one hand, we have a club that has learned to build dominance without scandals. On the other, we have a hungry market, impatient fans, and rivals arming themselves to the teeth. The balance is delicate. And you, supporter? Do you think Manchester City is on the right path with this new approach? Or do you feel the team has lost some of its fighting spirit? What's at stake for Manchester City right now goes beyond football. It's a quiet, surgical reconstruction happening while the world's eyes remain focused on the trophies. But behind every triumph, there's a complex web of strategic decisions, tough choices, and sometimes sacrifices that only the most observant can see. The truth is, City is changing. and those who don't notice this transition risk getting lost in the surface. The squad is being reshaped subtly, but deeply. Idols are being put to the test. Young players are being thrown into the fire. Players who were once unquestionable now find themselves competing with teenagers hungry for the spotlight. And it's no coincidence that Guardiola has remained silent about some moves. He knows that any reshaping generates noise. But he also knows that if the club wants to keep winning, it needs to reinvent itself before it even seems necessary. That's what separates winning teams from truly historic ones. Take Bernardo Silva, for example. 3 seasons ago, he was very close to leaving the club. He felt his cycle had ended, but City convinced him to stay. And today, he's the one who could wear the armband, not because they forced it, but because he became the soul of the team. Quietly, he started occupying spaces, gaining confidence, becoming indispensable. This is the type of story City wants to repeat with their young academy players. That's why Thurick, even with a modest debut, continues to receive special attention. Guardiola sees potential not only in what is seen on the pitch, but in the ability to evolve, to understand the system, to obey tactically and still find room to create. But this philosophy inevitably clashes with short-term goals. The upcoming season is crucial. The Premier League is more competitive than ever. Liverpool, even without Klopp, is looking to rebuild. Arsenal is maturing. United is trying to rise again. And Newcastle comes with more strength and money. City can't afford to stumble at the start of this cycle. That's why every decision made in this market needs to be calculated. Every player loaned out, every signing, every young player promoted. All of this is part of a chess game that Guardiola and the board are playing with cold precision. There's no room for sentimentality, and that's exactly why Kyle Walker's case still hurts part of the fan base, because he's a symbol of an era, one of the names that lifted trophies, silenced critics, made history. But football doesn't have a long memory when the present demands intensity. And today, Walker no longer delivers with the same consistency. His future is uncertain, and perhaps his time at City is too. It's the same reasoning applied to Grealish. While he still has a market, the English midfielder might be becoming more of a name than an impactful player. The difference between the two weighs heavily in a club like City. Here, a name doesn't guarantee a starting spot. Performance does. And at this point, Pepin Lijnders' arrival, former Klopp assistant, becomes even more relevant. He comes with offensive ideas, high intensity, and a focus on building play, exactly what City needs to maintain its identity, even with new pieces. Guardiola is building a new core, not just of players, but of ideas. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, Real Madrid's moves are starting to generate collateral effects on City's planning. The potential move of Lucas Vazquez to Fenerbahce directly impacts plans for Kyle Walker. It's not just about who leaves or joins City. It's about how other clubs move on the board. And when Real steps in, it's impossible not to have impacts. Today, football is a game of chain reactions, and City is playing that game cautiously. The signing of young reinforcements, adjustments in the coaching staff, and emotional control in the face of controversies are all signs of a shift in mentality. A club that even at the top is willing to deconstruct itself to reinvent. But the fans, of course, want answers in the present. They want goals. They want victories. They want trophies. And that's why the Club World Cup is so important, even for a squad filled with titles. Because it serves as the first test. It serves as a thermometer. It serves as a symbol that City is still hungry. Every minute on the pitch counts. Every player under the spotlight carries not only the fan base's expectations, but also the weight of a tactical system that demands perfection. And that's what makes Guardiola's job so complex, but also so fascinating. The Manchester City of today is no longer the same as 2 years ago. And that's good news, because the worst thing that could happen to a giant is to get comfortable with the past. If you're still here, following every detail, it's because you also feel something new is emerging, something bigger than a title, bigger than a player, bigger even than a victorious season. It's the building of a legacy, and that's why we invite you to stay with us. Like this video now, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell, because what's coming for Manchester City could be the beginning of a new era, and you won't want to miss it.